It's on. Bring it closer. All right.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the Imam Hussein Islamic Center, virtually of course, and it is a pleasure again to have everybody join us virtually this evening. And a very big thank you to Sheikh Mohammed Mahdi. Welcome, Sheikh.
Thank you.
For joining us this evening, and to our fantastic volunteers for helping in making sure that these programs happen and they go live, and also, of course, in coordinating these programs and making sure that there are programs that we can actually broadcast to you. Thank you all, of course, for joining us this evening, as you have been doing for many of the previous programs as well. It's been it's been a very challenging month, I believe, for not just for us here, but for all centers and all masajid around the world, regardless of your taqleed, regardless of your sect, regardless of anything else, not just the masajid and for Muslims, but also for any sort of religious worship. It's been a very challenging time, and in some places it's still even very much more challenging than what we're experiencing here. So our thoughts and our hearts go out to everybody, and once again, thank you very much for joining us for these programs. Inshallah, tonight we have a very interesting subject, and I think we have the right person to discuss that subject with. The concept of you reap what you sow. I'm sure we've heard that expression in our daily lives somewhere. We've heard it on TV. We've heard it through, I'm sure, through some religious sermons, whether in khutbah or whether spoken by other clergy people, that what you put out there comes back to you. Now, I don't want to get too far into it too quickly, because I think there's got to be a lot of good discussion on this one. And just a reminder that you're welcome to send through any questions or comments on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Zoom as well. And I kindly request that anybody on Zoom especially, you make sure, please, that you're using your proper first and last name. That just helps us make sure that we have people who are genuinely interested in this topic and being part of the community joining our session. And it also helps us to identify if there's any follow-ups that we need to do for you as well. It becomes easier for us to do that should it be required. And I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Sheikh, if you would give us your introduction. What is this concept of you reap what you sow? What does it mean to reap something and to sow something as well?
Generally, in our lives, firstly, I should say, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. In our lives, we learn from a very young age that basically whatever you put into something is what you're going to get out of it, and you're expected to put some sort of an effort in to get something in return. And genuinely, every prophet came with this message that there is a hereafter, there's a day of accountability, and whoever's done good on this day will get rewarded. Whoever has done bad will be punished. Now, many times you found where humans deviated the course of the religion and made people follow other opinions, be it with the Jews, where they brought the concept of the Jews being the chosen race and sufficient that you're a Jew in order for you to enter paradise without doing anything else. Allah Azza wa Jal then answered them with a challenge: إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت. If you claim that you are the chosen ones in this case, then ask for death, basically, because you're the chosen one, so you shouldn't be afraid of dying. And then God answers this by saying وَلَنْ يَتَمَنَّوْنَهُ أَبَدًا, that they would never seek death, nor would they wish death in any way, because they know what they've done. He knows what they've brought forth. And then even the Christians brought the idea of being absolved through crucifixion, that through the blood of the Christ and the crucifixion of the Christ, that they were pretty much given a carte blanche, as they say, that you can do what you want as long as you accept that Jesus died for your sins. And why? We throw it back on, they say that it was from the original sin, that Adam was a sinner, and that God, when he created man, he gave him 10 commandments, but he knew they weren't up to it. So he came down on earth. And I know some people might find this disrespectful, but I'm not here to make friends. We're talking about realities. That God, this is what they say, that God saw that man wasn't up to it, so he has to punish someone. So he came down, had his own creation crucify him in order to, absolve them of their sins, to give them, exonerate them, if you will. So anyway, this concept was always there, where no one took what? No one took, even as children, we say, my brother made me do it or something. We never take the blame that it's me. I need to do the right thing. So the concept of reaping what you sow, you do good, you get good in return. You sow the right seeds, you cultivate, you irrigate fertile land, good seed, you do it in the right way, you get good crop. If you go to a desolate land or barren land, and it doesn't matter what you do there. So I need to have the right place to do the right thing, and then I get the reward. And this is something that everyone accepts and acknowledges.
So if you're a farmer, you know very easily what it means to sow something and to reap something.
Pretty much.
You put something, you take your seed, you take your plantation, you take your crop,
That's
you put it in the ground. Yeah, you put it in the ground, and what comes out of it is your reward for your efforts and whatnot. You might take it to the market.
But it's
you might
more
sell
figurative than literal.
Of course, it's more figurative, but in that respect, our actions is what we are sowing, and our habits, and what we reap from that is either the good or the bad, in a theological sense, I suppose, of what we get back from that. Are we rewarded for those things that we have planted in the ground, which is, I suppose we could say, is our life or our soul? We've planted those things or those habits. And what we get out of that is either an elevation in our being, in our status, in our soul, in our spirituality, or a de-escalation of where we stand, or a reduction in our status, cosmically and theologically speaking. Is that kind of...
Look, it's... When we say you reap what you sow, or not necessarily, you're talking about things that are pertaining more to what? Our physical state. Is that what you meant exactly to a...
Physical or metaphysical?
Both.
Both.
Okay.
Because, see, we have to live in this world. We have to live in the hereafter.
Of course, you have to live in this world, but we're talking about at the outset, initially, when we took the logic of this. Some people say, well, I believe. It's true. A believer enters paradise. There's no doubt about it. But a believer has qualities of a believer. See, for example, if I told you, do you want a lemon? And I squeeze the lemon, you go, what a sweet tasting lemon. It's not a lemon. A lemon is sour. If I gave you some sugar and you said this is bitter sugar, it's not bitter, it's not sugar then. So what I'm saying, if someone says I'm a mu'min, I'm a believer, amantu billah, I believe in God, and then he's swigging beer. This isn't the truth. Imagine like someone says, I'm a believer, they don't pray. What belief is this? This isn't belief. And a believer shows that they're a believer. Obviously, there's different levels, and there's different levels of understanding. But when sometimes you'll sit with a woman, like I once sat with a young lady, she was asking me questions, we're having a discussion. She knew so much about religion, yet no hijab. And you think to yourself, well, you know everything about religion. You understand religion so well, yet you don't wear hijab. Yeah, but I pray, I fast, I've been to ziyarah. But you don't wear hijab. This is a fundamental thing that you need to show pretty much what your beliefs are. So you are lacking in that department. We're not saying this person isn't a believer. We're saying they're lacking here. That if I was to look, you know how we say you don't judge a book by its cover, but Islamically, it's not about judging. I know a Muslim how? By their cover. The Quran says this. Simahum fi wujuhim. You can tell that it's a believer. You can look, this person's a believer. Now it's a bit difficult, you know, with someone was mentioning it recently with the beard. We were sitting down, I don't know if you remember. Someone said with the beard, you could actually tell who was a Muslim by the beard, and now, you know, everyone's the beard's in vogue.
Yeah,
so
it's a fashion. It's
a fashion now.
It's across. It doesn't matter what your religious belief or what your ethnic background. It's a fashion. It's in
It's
style.
in now, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I was saying. That in this case, start off with the believer has to portray or have the image of being a believer, and also reflect what's really inside. Obviously, the hypocrite does that automatically. Does it bring up their status? Of course it does, even in this world as well as the next. How does it bring up their position and it shows its effects? Obviously, they live a better life, but I need to make people understand that living a better life does not mean having a beachfront condo and a Ferrari. That's not what it means to have a better life. They have a better feeling within. That they're always comfortable. Like you see that they're just happy with whatever state they're in, and that's internal happiness is it's priceless. Besides that, the people around them like them. If you take a look, for example, a world leader that is righteous or a world personality is righteous, when they speak, people believe them more than their own leaders. And when their leaders speak, if they know that their leaders are lying and are pertaining to this world. When you see someone, you say, this person doesn't lie. When he speaks, this person doesn't lie because this person is God-fearing. So it does elevate you in the eyes of people. People like you, people revere you more, people respect you more, and in the hereafter and within, you're the one that feels that feeling as well. In fact, you know the saying, as they say, a good deed is its own reward. And that's one of the first rewards that you get for doing a good deed is the good feeling you have when you do it. And the first punishment you get for committing a sin is the bad feeling that you actually have when you commit the sin.
Yeah, understood, absolutely. Sheikh, can we take this concept of you reap what you sow and look at it from a karma point of view? I know that there is a very loosely wording, so I'm using very general terminology
I
here.
understand what you mean.
That there is the concept of Islamic karma, right?
Well, karma meaning, like the Imam says, kama tudin tudan, which is pretty much like karma. You know, the kama tudin, because you know the word din is the way you act, your way of life, the way you act. Kama tudin, the way you act is the way you'll be acted upon, which it is a form in that case. Like you do something wrong, it's coming back to you. Even if you take a look at a lot of people that assisted tyrants, look at all the Middle Eastern dictators that were always working for the agenda of the enemy. The enemy was the one that got rid of them in the end. You know, the ones that were in the hands of the tyrants that worked for the tyrant. The tyrant was the one that eventually got rid of them, and that happens all the time. Because sometimes you think I'm doing something. I'll give you a really good example. People that are involved in the mafia. We have the Imam says, "Man yashab sahib as-su' la yaslam." Whoever keeps a bad friend will not be safe from the bad friend. The thing is, when the mob kills people, they kill other mob people. They never go outside. So once you're in the game, everything's legit. And if you've been involved in killing someone, One day you're going to be the person being killed because of somebody had a hunch. Just like you killed someone because somebody had a hunch.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's definitely what goes around comes
Yeah,
around, right? So
that's right.
and there is Sheikh Mansour has done a series on, and part of that series he focuses on this concept itself of what goes around comes around, and in a, again, very loosely speaking, a form of Islamic karma, where what deeds you perform will either come back to reward you or to bring punishment to you, and if not to you, then either to your parents or to your children. So it's very intertwined. It's a very, very nuanced discussion. It's not something that I'm far from qualified to try to explain it to anybody, but certainly it's something very worthwhile looking up with Sheikh Mansour, and I'm sure that Sheikh can talk about it as well, that the concept that what I put out there will eventually find its way back to me,
Well,
whether it's good or bad, and
you see it all the time.
yeah.
Like how all these new laws, like if you take a look at what's his name, Voldemort, what's his name, Peter Dunn, the stuff that he's bringing out now. You know how he wants to bring in all this legislation which really crushes people,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you'll find all these people, they're the ones that will be affected by these laws.
Yeah.
They'll come back and bite them because they'll put it in a way where you set it up so it's a bit like if you look at what's it called, the Master of the Red Death, where Prince Prospero, the Edgar Allan Poe story, where he actually, in order to keep the pandemic out, the Red Death, he builds a fortress where he won't let any of the diseased people come in, and the death makes its way inside. Now the fortress he's built to keep it out keeps them locked in from getting out. And so what happens, sometimes you build what's it called, say I fortify my house, or I do something like that, not considering the effects. So say I don't want any beggars to come into the house, so I fortify the house. Then one day I fall and I break my neck, and I'll call out and no one can come in because the house is fortified. So in a way, what you do, it's going to come back and bite you. Everything you do will come back. And what you're mentioning in the stories, there are a lot of stories about this, where someone brings out something or does something or introduces something or commits a certain sin, and it comes back to them. And likewise, when you do a good deed, it brings you favor. I remember we had one gentleman. He came to a center, and this guy was a Christian. He became a Muslim, and he went to one of the the centers that they keep telling you Shia Kafir and all this. After sitting in that center for so long, he said, "I'm going to go meet some of the Shia and see these Kafirs what they do." So when he arrived, we were at one of the centers. He sat down, and he wanted to get to know about Tashayyu and all that. He was really interested. And my brother was with me at the time, and he said to him, what good deed have you done that has brought you here? Because you've been in the other end where you usually get locked in. You must have done something good. This is what we're talking about. And he said, I don't know. My brother said, are you good with your parents, your mother? And he actually smiled and he said, yes. Out of all my family, they don't give my mum much attention. I stay and I look after her. See, this is what brings you. Sometimes when you're doing, especially being good to your parents, brings you towards righteousness and brings you towards good. So what you mentioned before, a good action does bring a good consequence as a bad action. And we're talking about in this world, partially, in the next world, entirely. It will be in that way.
Thank you, Sheikh. Sheikh, we have our first of our questions, if you don't mind. How does this relate to the concept of dua, that if you pray for others, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant you more, or what it is that you are praying for the other?
Well, generally, with praying for others, you're praying good thing for other people because you're supposed to want for your brethren like you want for yourself. This is about being selfless and altruistic. But in reality, what you're doing is selfish, and I'll explain what I'm trying to say. Because what you're doing is, this is what Allah has requested from you to do. So everything you do is for yourself. So you being selfless is for yourself. I know it's a bit difficult to understand, but that's where the reward comes in. But when I pray, if you take a look at all the prayers, you're praying for yourself with others. Like for example, Allahumma inni as'aluka, inni, I'm talking about myself. And all the du'as are like this. Then in the dua, you'll have Rabbana ghfir lil mu'minina wal mu'minat. There's segments where you'll ask for the believers. In fact, even when you pray for your parents, you pray for who first? Rabbana ghfir li wa li walidayya. It begins with you. You read the du'as the way the Imams told you. But when I do the dua, I say I'm doing this dua in my intention. I don't really need to say this on behalf of all my brothers. This includes you. On behalf of all the believers, this includes you. Because whatever you're doing, you're getting the reward anyway. So this is where the dua comes in. And it's good to do it for everyone because you should wish well for others. In fact, dua makarim al-akhlaq, Imam Zain al-Abidin goes one step further. He doesn't only ask for you to wish good for others. In dua makarim al-akhlaq, he says, وَأَجْرِي عَلَى يَدَيَّ لِلنَّاسِ الْخِيرِ. Make me a proxy for good deeds. So let me be also a proxy for good deeds, that I do good for people. Don't only have me asking, like if someone needs something, bring them to my door. Let them knock on my door. Let me be that means, and that's the importance of that. So praying for them, of course. And the other things, when you pray for others, especially for Imam, Sahib al-Amr, Salam alayhi, he prays for you. And his prayer doesn't get rejected. Whereas yours, as Imam Zain al-Abidin says in Dua Abi Hamza Thamali, he says, Afa bilisani hadha al-kal ashkuruk. This tongue that I've used, that when you say kal, this tongue that's basically, we say in Arabic, ta'ban. In other words, it's useless. It hasn't been used in any good. I'm going to thank you with this, what's it called, tongue. So I ask someone, as a dua says, the Ruwayyi says, the hadith says, he says, supplicate or pray to me with a tongue that you have not disobeyed me with. And that's someone else's tongue.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
No, subhanallah. That's really something. I was aware of the idea that if you have a wish or a desire, if you have something that you want fulfilled, you ask others to pray for you. But that's how you've put it is absolutely beautiful, Sheikh. I think that's fantastic. Another question, if you don't mind. How will we know that our actions will reap a good reward or a certain reward?
Okay. Firstly, when you do an action, you need to look at the purity of the action. And the way to do it is to think to yourself, would I still be doing this action if anyone was watching me? Would I still be doing this action? You got to have that intention. That's how you know what its value is. Its value is, am I going to give this? There's people, it's good to give sadaqah publicly. It's good to give sadaqah in secret. Publicly, obviously, with the intention to encourage others to pay. But would I give the same amount I'm doing publicly, secretly, if I knew no one would know about it? Would I still pray Salat al-Layl if I didn't have to? The next, many people will come up to others and tell them, I prayed Salat al-Layl last night. Sometimes you see one of the ulama, he'll say, for those fortunate enough to pray Salat al-Layl. And you don't look at this person, this person probably prays Salat Jafar al-Tayyar at night. But he says it in a way that he wishes he was one of those people. Whereas other people, they'll come and announce it and they'll be very vocal about it, about them praying this or doing a good action. So if I want to do an action, I want to know what its value is. I'll look at how much I give it when I'm on my own. There's no one's just between me and God. Where I have that pure sincerity, where I'm at home alone praying, there's no one there. How do I pray? When I'm sitting up and I actually when I talk to God, do I honestly believe? The way to know where your belief is something very simple. Do you have more faith in what's in your pocket, or do you have more faith with what's with Allah? That's how you know. That if you're someone that sits there and goes, oh my God, I start checking my finances, I'm not going to survive till tomorrow. This is where the balance is. Do I actually believe there is a God? That when I give, I don't care. I'm giving because I know Allah Azza wa Jal will suffice me. That's how I need to think. Once I reach that, then I have purity in my action, because I actually believe. It's all got to do with your belief in God, and all your actions are linked with ma'rifah, knowing God. To have that ma'rifah of Allah Azza wa Jal, to have the ma'rifah of Rasulullah, to have the ma'rifah of the Imam of your time, and to know them, know that their position, know the mercy of Allah. Like we were talking with a few friends of mine last night, and we mentioned that if someone has any grief at all, to say La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah al-ali al-azim. And if you say it once, it should be enough to remove all the woe from you. Completely, you'll feel yourself relaxed. But if someone doesn't feel like that, they're not understanding what they've just said. Just keep repeating it and understand that there's no will or power except with Allah. So in other words, everything's with Allah. So when I have that intention with my actions, see, when I'm doing an action and I know this petty action, because I know myself, is going to be accepted so well from Allah. Why? Because He's khayrul shakirin. Ya man yaqbalul yasir. He accepts little. Khayrul shakirin means that He shows the real gratitude to your action. He's the one that really rewards you. Whereas other people, you could bring the sun and the moon and offer it to them, and they'll say, well done, that's it, and walk away. Whereas Allah Azza wa Jal, you do something so petty, and then He says, look, I'm going to give you, look at the du'as you do. You read the du'as in Shah Ramadan. I swear I could read these du'as in one breath, and then He says He's going to give you this city in paradise. And I said, what? I could do this on my head. It's that simple. This is the benevolence of God. When you understand the concept of God in this way, then your actions are accepted. This is how you need to understand. Understand is God's position, God's status. That's when your actions are of value.
Ahsan Sheikh. There's in Shahr Ramadan, there's so many beautiful du'as, and all of them, almost all of them, they talk about how great our Creator is, and how lowly I am as His creation, and what right do I have to even ask of Him of anything. But if I ask of Him, I should have absolute certainty that He's heard my plea, and He's going to answer my plea. And if I don't have that certainty, I have no right to ask Him to begin with. It's beautiful.
It's a fact. It's every dua says this. It screams it out. Every dua, it screams that He's everything, you are nothing, you're getting it, and you're not worthy of it. So once you understand this, then your actions are pure. That's when your actions are pure. You are fully understanding. Some people still feel they are something. Don't lie to yourself. Look deep inside, and you'll see exactly what you are.
Yeah.
You'll see, it's not like when someone says, I am nothing. There are people that actually know that they're nothing. What am I? Honestly, think about it. What right do I have even to exist? What right? What have I done? What have I done? Why am I I mentioned that word to you the last time, entitledist. Why do I actually think I'm entitled to things? Why do I think I have a right to this? As a child, I have a right. You have a right to nothing. Yeah, Allah's so benevolent. Allah's so merciful. And He says, you know what? You think you're entitled, but I'm going to just do this much, and I'll give it to you anyway. I don't need to give you anything, but I'm going to give it to you anyway.
But that's less of a reflection of who we are or what we are, even in our view or anybody else's view, and more of a reflection of who our Creator is.
That's it. But that's what it's about.
That's absolutely what it's about.
It's about,
and the even we may go, and during Shahr Ramadan especially, the du'as are there and they encourage you to go in as with complete humility as much as you can, and to do sujood and to bow down in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially in Shahr Ramadan, because this is the month for it more than any other month, right? And the worth of you as an individual creation doesn't come from you or anybody else. That worth comes from the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided that it was worth for Him to have created you and to have put you on this path and to have brought you to this point and to have put you in a place that you are doing that dua in front of Him with, inshallah, with the full humility that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is deserving of receiving.
That's right. That's it. It's exactly what you're saying. The situation is set to be like that. That's why when people forget the element of mercy in all this, I do what I can, but what gets me in this is mercy. I don't rely. He goes, "Lastu attakilu" in Da'a bi Hamza. He says, "Lastu attakilu." He said, "I do not rely in the Da'a." He says, "On you accepting me or forgiving me for my actions. بل بفضلك علينا." لست أتكل في النجاة على ولست أتكل to be saved, salvation, with my actions بأعمالنا بل بفضلك علينا. What I rely upon is your grace upon me. Like I might do everything, but that's not what I'm relying upon. Because I know. He says, فَمَا قَدْرُ أَعْمَالِنَا فِي جَنْبِ شُكْرِكَ. How can I think في جنب نعمك عفوا. How can I look at the value of my actions when I compare them to your blessings, the bounties you have given me? How can I even consider that I've done anything? You know, could you imagine if you were living with someone that was immensely rich? You're living a really wealthy person, and you say, all right, we're going to make a savings account together, and you're both equals here. We're not talking about with God where there's no equality anyway whatsoever. And he puts, say, for example, $10,000 in a savings a month, and you put $100, and you say we're saving together, and you're not even a fraction, you know. So in this case, with God Almighty, with Allah Azza wa Jal, you are putting the money in the account that He's given you to put in the account. And He's given you the ability to use your hand. He's given you the inspiration, the providence. All this is from Him. So where do you love? That's why I have to, when I have the attitude towards God, there's purity in my action.
Absolutely.
That's where the purity comes in.
Ahsan. Sheikh, there is a dua, and I'm forgetting which dua it is, but it goes along the lines of, you've given me the opportunity to worship you and to thank you. But in order to thank you, first I have to take a breath. How do I thank you for taking that breath without first thanking you that I've been able to take that breath, that you've given me that breath to take?
Yeah.
Where do I even start my thanks and my gratitude towards you when everything that you've given me insists that I should be continually and constantly grateful for simply the fact that you have given me and that you've put me here?
That's right.
It's astounding.
Regressive. It's infinitely regressive.
Absolutely.
You'll never stop. Just that the point is, but there's actually a hadith on this. When Nabi Musa alayhi salam says to Allah Azza wa Jal, how can I thank you? When he goes to him, Allah Azza wa Jal says to him, do you want to give me gratitude? Or you give me haqq, which means you fulfill the most perfect way you can thank me. And he says, the Nabi Musa alayhi salam says something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing obviously. He says, how can I thank you to this point where I'd have to thank you for giving me the opportunity to thank you like this? He said, that is that gratitude that I'm talking about. That you knowing you can't, you now know how to. But so when I thank God, I know I'm doing something small, but you're going to taqabbalha bi ahsani qabul. You're going to give it the best acceptance because that's what you do. And that's what you've made me used to my whole life. And that's the whole relationship between you and God. So when you actually don't commit or abstain from sin, you should have the shame that how am I biting the hand that feeds me? You have that shame. That shame's got to be there. If you don't have that shame, imagine living with someone and stealing from them, and they've been providing you the whole time. What kind of a human are you? You know, you can't be like that.
Unfortunately, there's lots of cases like that where spouses literally they steal from each other, children steal from their parents, parents steal from their children, where people who work for another person
Steal from
their employer, and
well, they still have till their last breath to make amends.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But if they don't, these are all traits that will lead you astray eventually. You'll start small. Like if you even look at criminology, before someone commits a major crime, they always look for their little petty crimes, and they build up. It's as a snowball effect.
Yeah.
You know, you're not. Saddam wasn't born Saddam. You know, Shuraih al-Qadi is a perfect example. Shuraih al-Qadi, the one that signed the death warrant of Muslim Aqil, the death warrant, I think, even of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He's the Qadi, he was the judge that signed their death warrant. He was actually a governor during the time of Imam Ali's Khilafah. And he was doing some shonky business. The Imam warned him about it. You know, shonky, when I say shonky business, a lot of people that are Muslims do it right now. They rip the system to, for example, they'll get into some political position and then they start playing the game in order to make money left, right, and center. And so when I play these little games, you know, just to make a few dollars here and there, I don't realize they snowball. That one day I'll end up being someone that's in an actual, because you're starting, these generally a local government. Before you know it, they'll be federal, and they'll be associating in a genocide somewhere or a massacre somewhere. You know what I mean? They didn't just get there overnight. You know, these people, imagine anyone that becomes a prime minister of a country or a president of a country is an associate in some murder. Don't think this guy just started yesterday doing this stuff. He's been doing it for a while. Now he's proficient at it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be used to doing this. They'd say, no way, we're killing innocent people. There's no way I'm getting involved in this.
well, certainly, I mean, once you reach those levels of authority or power, ultimately that culpability is yours. That final say, if you like, rests upon you, whether you've directly pulled the trigger on somebody or not.
Yeah.
That's you've had a hand in that regardless. And that goes the same for somebody who works for a large company or a company that has a lot of influence, and they engage in the wrong sorts of practices to be able to run their company, whether it be influencing decisions and outcomes through in politics, or whether it be being able to access resources that nobody else can access, and to be able to take away from those people who are being deprived of those resources. Ultimately, it's their responsibility. They're accountable for that. Whether directly or indirectly they've had a say in it or not, they're accountable for that.
But what I was saying is, they didn't just suddenly become like this.
Of
How many
course,
people's heads you have to step on to get to the top?
Lots.
You know, you have to. I remember this is pop culture with The Simpsons, where they asked Mr. Burns, who was supposed to be the billionaire in the city, how did you become so rich? He said, friends, family, and religion. These are the three demons you have to slay to get to the top. You know, that's pretty. It was said in a jocular sense, but it's true. A lot of these people, to get to the top, don't underestimate what they did and how many people's lives they would have ruined. I don't know if you they made a movie recently about John McCain.
Yep.
Yeah, John McCain. They made a movie about him, and was it John McCain, the Vice President of the United States? John McCain, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then there was a story I remember we heard when we were younger where he shot someone, and actually mentioned he just shot him. He got angry with him and he shot him in the face with a birdshot.
Yeah.
Not buckshot.
Yeah. Wasn't that Dick Cheney?
Dick Cheney.
Dick
Why
Cheney.
did I say John McCain? Dick Cheney.
But there was a movie about
Yeah,
John McCain as well.
there was a movie about Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
He's the one that did that.
Yeah.
But he could do that. And that's how these people... Man, you
He
shoot
did it
some-
with absolute impunity. He did it
That's
knowing
right.
that there is absolutely nothing that will be
Yeah,
done to
but
him.
what could bring you to this point? It's not so easy to shoot someone in the face.
And then
You've
get away
done-
with it.
You've done a lot of things before. You just don't... These aren't decisions that someone makes overnight. It's unlike when, a lot of people commit a crime because of the situation, the circumstance. But someone that does something like that, like you said, with impunity, this is something that they just, mustered up the courage to do on that day.
It's not a one-time thing. Like you
It's
said,
not
it's a build-up.
So that's what I was saying. So these people, to get to this point, they start off small. We all make mistakes as human beings. It's turning back that's important. And the benefit, remember we're talking about reaping what you sow. The benefit of turning back is what? سَيُبَدِّلُ اللَّهُ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ حَسَنَاتٍ. That when you turn back, Allah doesn't just clean your slate. He takes all your sins, this is in Surah Al-Furqan, and He puts them in, all your losses become wins. So you could have committed 100,000 sins, 1,000,000 sins. When you say, God, I've changed, I'm turning to the good side, I'm going to become good, I'm turning back to you. God just doesn't clean your slate. He removes all the sins and transfers them to good deeds. And the sins He actually mentions in the Quran, He mentions 3 of the major sins. He says a shirk, taking partnership with God, killing an innocent person, and adultery. He says whoever commits these, they'll be punished, and so on and so forth. He said, except those that repent. Those that turn back, all these sins become what? Good deeds. So the whole idea is for you to know that there is a point where you can turn back. And this is Shahr Ramadan where you should think about it. Because the biggest problem a lot of people face is they delay it thinking they will have time to turn back.
I wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, go
I've heard a lot of instances, very anecdotally, of course, that I'm not going to go to Hajj now.
Yeah.
I'm still young. I'll go when I'm older so I can repent for everything that I've done. And then when I die, I've got a clean slate. And I won't, I'm still young. I'm 30, 40, 50, whatever it might be. I have a long life ahead of me. If I change now, then I have to live the rest of my life that way.
Yeah.
But God will forgive me regardless. So when I'm ready, then I'll do it.
That's Omar ibn Asad speaking, but anyway, it's pretty much what he said. He said, I will kill Imam Hussein, I will do this, I will do that, and in the end I'll repent. But the thing is, tomorrow never comes.
That's right. We don't know when our end of days is going to be.
They get, who was it? I think the poet, Al-Ash'ath. Al-Ash'ath, when he heard about Islam, this is one of the tragedies in history. He heard about Islam, he said, I'm going to go become a Muslim.
Yeah.
So Abu Jahl and all that said, what are you doing? Because they said Al-Ash'ath is such a strong poet. If he follows Rasulullah and starts speaking poetry of him, this is going to be, because the Arabs love poetry.
Yeah.
It's going to be such a strong force. So they offer him, they said, listen, come back, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. He said, no, I want to follow Islam. So they said, all right, just delay it for 1 year.
Yeah.
1 year, that's all we ask you for. 1 year, and we'll give you, they said, obviously, they offered them the same things that was offered men to turn.
Yeah.
Camels, or now would be cars and whatever, money and women. They offered him all this, and he's not made of stone, and he doesn't have really any religion yet. So they said, 1 year, yeah, I'll come back and be good in 1 year. So he goes back to them, but he dies within the year. So he never makes it to the Prophet.
Yep.
And that's what people do. They'll say, because don't forget, when you make a decision, one of my friends, he had in his status on his WhatsApp, he had a hadith that said, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, upon the mu'min, there are more shayateen, more devils than there are flies on a piece of meat. It's a hadith an Imam. One of those verified hadiths, not one of those where people just stick them up. Yeah. So that you're at war. When you want to go towards Islam, everyone wants you to turn away. The whole world's against you. Every article, when you think of the word Muslim, everything about it is derogatory.
Yeah.
Jihad is derogatory.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Shaheed, martyr is derogatory. Everything got to do with Islam. Halal You know, it's terrorism written all over it. You know? So you got all this, the whole world is working against you. You're heading in a direction where everyone's banging against you to stop you. And you overcome this. Do you not think God's going to pour His mercy and His grace and everything? Because you overcome such huge adversity and so many things working against you. Because you know, when a woman wants to wear hijab, how many people want to stop her? But when a woman wants to take off hijab, people are so normal about it.
Oh, they're very supportive, in fact.
Yeah.
So,
Well, let's like the divorce.
yeah.
Yeah, if you don't want him, get divorced. Rather than let's fix things. People don't talk about, who was it? One of the brothers told me when he first had problems with his wife, and he was from the other sect of Islam, and he later became a follower of Ahlul Bayt. He said, when I wanted to get divorced, he said, I came to a Shia center, and the sheikh said to me, he said, we've come for a divorce. And then he said a word I'd never heard before. Islah Dhat al-Bayn. He said reconciliation. He said, what, do we actually reconcile? See, a lot of, he was shocked. He said, because everyone in his family and around him was just saying divorce.
Yeah.
No one was pushing you towards reconciliation. And that's the way it is. So when you're moving in that direction, you got everyone working against you. But you have that chance to turn back, and this chance should be taken in these final nights, especially tonight being, we don't know if we're going to see tomorrow. That's
Exactly, absolutely. I'm glad you've mentioned that, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But I'd like to put some questions to you from some of our viewers, if that's all right.
Yes.
How do we know that our actions will reap a good reward or a certain reward? I think we've been through that one already.
Well, apply it. Look at your intention. Why are you doing it? You know, you can't. Allah says in the Quran, بَلِ الْإِنسَانِ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرًا. Surah Al-Qiyamah. That mankind can see what they're actually doing. And then it says, وَلَوْ أَلْقَ مَعَاذِيرًا. Even if he makes excuses. You know, sometimes, for example, someone's going to commit a sin. Like they're out in Whoop, out in the sticks, and they're going to eat some meat. Oh, there's no halal meat, this is my only option. And they'll convince themselves what they're doing is permissible. There's no excuses. Where there was a concession, God gave a concession. You know what I mean? So I know what I'm doing. I can't lie to I can lie to everyone. I can't lie to myself. And that's the thing. So you want to know if your action's good, you know. You know deep inside what you're doing is right or wrong. Like, for example, that post that they put up recently, that guy that made the GoFundMe page for the young girl that was murdered.
Yeah.
And then he wrote, when I found out she was Shia, that I don't want to be questioned on the Day of Judgment. If he really felt that way, he wouldn't have put it up on Facebook for the world to know. He would have contacted his local sheikh and his local and said, listen, I have a problem here. Is this right or wrong? Yeah. The fact he was so diligent enough to make a GoFundMe page, he knows that he just put it up there. Honestly, these people, when they put these things up to let the world know, he knows what he's doing is wrong. He just put it in a way where they want to pretend. Because initially, when you want to do a GoFundMe page, any intelligent person will go research.
Yeah,
before
find
they
out
go
exactly.
do it.
Yeah, who's
I
the
wouldn't
person,
just read an
what is the
article,
cause,
someone got shot and I'm living in somewhere else. So he knew what he was doing the whole time. And if I've done something wrong, Facebook isn't a confessional. For you to get up and say, hold on, guys, I think, last night I stabbed somebody to death. Can someone help me out?
Sheikh, if you think Facebook is not a confessional, I don't think you've been on Facebook.
No. But I think people show, what do they say, grandstand?
Yeah, it's very much. Yeah, definitely, it's grandstanding. There's a lot of showcasing. There is a term for it. I know there's new psychological terms coming up all the time because of technology. But definitely, that is an issue that. So
if I want to know my actions, there's a hadith when someone asked the Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. He says, "How do I know what my position is with God?" Simple. This is your litmus test. You want to hear this? Your litmus test. How do I know what my position is with God? The Imam says, look at your position when it comes to sin. How quickly do you commit sin and how much you abstain? This is I'm adding those words. Your position when it comes to sin. Do you immediately, someone calls you, run to the sin? Or are you someone that holds back? If you're someone that abstains, you're way up there with God. Sin, this is what it's about. If you're someone that says, oh, my cousin's wedding, I get to be on the head of the dabke, and I'm going to be dancing, you're going to have that. You know where you are. You're with Satan and his imps. But if you're someone that says, this is the, gathering of the shaitan, and this is not where a mu'min goes, so I put myself in that position, and I abstain from that. That's how they know. They don't like, I'm not going to sit there and tell you, you know yourself. It's not a lottery. The day of judgment's not a lottery. Right now, you know if you, like I sit with some people, do you know if you're going to heaven or hell? You know, firstly, if you're a mu'min, you should be sure you're going to heaven. Something's wrong if you don't believe you're going to heaven.
But that's conditional a little bit as well.
It's how you get there.
Exactly, yeah.
But you go in there.
Yeah.
If you listen, if you have, see, this is the thing. Because how do you know you're a mu'min? There's a hadith that's clear. It says for every believer, there is a flame or heat or inside the heart for Imam Hussein, a flame that does not get extinguished ever. How many people have this flame? If you have this flame, you're a mu'min. How long will it take you to get in heaven? That's the situation. And that's what you got to fix. But if that flame's there, you're a mu'min. And if you're a mu'min, you're going to heaven. It's simple equation. If you don't have this flame for Imam Hussein, then you better find a way.
Well, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, that's the way that it has to be there. This is a sign of you being a believer. This is your belief to show your relationship with the Imam sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Sheikh, another couple of questions if you don't mind. What are some ways to reverse a potential negative action and or deed to save oneself from it returning to them? So how do you, if you've performed a negative action or a negative deed, you've done something wrong, how do you prevent that, the result or the consequence of that coming back to you?
Well, firstly, Allah says in the Quran, Inna al-hasanati yudhibna as-sayyat. Go do something good. That's why we say when someone dies, pay sadaqah. The quickest thing that reaches is sadaqah. Sadaqah in general is a good action. Go do a good action. If your mother's alive, go do something good for your mother. If your parents are alive, go help your parents.
Coming back to last week's discussion, that is one of the best things you can do.
It's the life. You want to live a life where Allah is happy with you, be good to your parents. That's the main thing. So
it's not always easy.
Of course it's not. Parents are unreasonable. I'm unreasonable with my children. They're not. Two different generations.
Oh, I'm guilty of that, I'm sure.
Two different generations. What are you talking about? I mean, how am I supposed to negotiate with a kid that's buying downloadable content? You know, honestly, the guy says, all right, I bought a skin for Fortnite, I'm getting another skin there. They're not reasonable. You know, they're buying intangible things.
Sheikh, I know that so many parents are listening to that and going, how are you in my own home? Are you what?
That's the thing. The thing is they're different. So my child will find me not reasonable. I'll find my parents not reasonable. And that's the beauty of it.
However, my parents with my children are the most reasonable.
Yeah. Obviously, because do you know why parents like your kids in a way and they spoil them? So I believe this is a conspiracy theory. I honestly believe parents do this because the child is the muntaqim, is the one that's there to take revenge for the years of strain you gave them. So they support them. It's an alliance against you. So
I have a more altruistic view than that.
Yeah.
I love that story, but I have a more.
That was all a joke. But anyway.
I have a more altruistic view. Your parents are doing with your children what they wish they could have done with you. How they wish they could have spent that time and spent that attention on you, but they were too busy actually bringing you up to spoil you or to give you all of that, knowing that you are there to take care of your children and bring up your children and to reprimand them and to guide them and to teach them the right way. Well, and they take advantage of being able to spend that beautiful time and being able to spoil them and give them those things and so on.
The equation, grandfather or uncle equal what? Father plus fun. That's the equation, yeah. Because they can do that. Whereas the father has to still, because the buck stops with you.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to say, oh, his uncle brought him up bad. They're going to say the father did. So if the uncle doesn't care. You want to jump off the roof with your skateboard?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. That's where we went off on a massive segue there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with you doing an action and knowing if this action is going to be acceptable, or if this action is correct, you're the one that knows. And the second one, what the other question was, how do I make up for something not coming back? Go do something good. Pay sadaqah. I'll tell you, there's several things. Number one, as-sadaqatu tadfa'u al-bala. Sadaqah takes away the trial.
Yeah.
The second thing is, if you don't have time to do sadaqah, read Surah Al-Shams. Surah Al-Shams wa Shamsi wa Duha takes away the bala. So there's always a way. There's always a way out.
Subhanallah.
There's always a way for you to turn away. And the easiest way is to remove everything. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If you read this dhikr, it removes everything. It removes sin. It takes away everything you can imagine. It's a dhikr that Allah Azza wa Jalla, that you're sending salutations upon the Prophet. Rasulullah will pray for you. And this is how a point with reaping and sowing. See, sometimes people go, all right, anna laysa lil insani illa ma sa'a. On the day of judgment, doesn't it say you will only get what you give? So how does intercession come in? Have you ever asked yourself, how does intercession play a role?
Tell me.
Well, intercession is the Prophet's reward for you for saying salawat upon him. When you say salawat, you prayed for him in the dunya, he comes to your aid in akhirah. Haven't you seen the hadiths that say, man zarani fazurtu? The Imam will say, whoever visits me, I will visit him.
Yeah.
So everything you do comes back to you. This is still reaping what you sow. When I sat there and I came to the Imam and I visited his grave, while I came from the end of the world, people coming from countries like here, for example, Australia. Some people are going to Karbala. You know how much they're traveling just to get there. And there are people that live. I remember I once went to Mecca in the Hajj. I met a man who was in his 60s. He was driving a taxi. Back in the old days, they didn't have the subcontinent drivers. Back then, they were actually Saudis. Yeah. I got into the cab with him, and I said to him, where are you from? He said, Ana min Ahl Makkah. I'm from the people of Mecca. I said, how many times have you been to Hajj? He said, I've never been to Hajj. And I said, why not? He said, Zahma, it's going to cause problem, too many people. I said, so do you pray in Masjid al-Haram? Do you know what he said to me in his 60s? He said, I have never seen the Kaaba.
Oh my God.
This guy lived in Mecca, he has never seen the Kaaba. You are coming from the end of the world to come to a place where there are people that are there that don't go. On the day of judgment, when you come to visit, when you go to on the day of judgment and you are in need, the Imam says, this person came to visit me. While others around me did not even come to visit me. And this is where the intercession comes in. It's still reaping what you sow. It's not a freebie.
But on a similar vein to that, response to salam is wajib, right? Doing the salam in the first place is not wajib, but it's highly rewarded and highly encouraged. Even more. How many times have you read Ziyarat Imam Hussain?
A lot.
A lot. Isn't it then incumbent on the Imam to reply to your salam?
That's right.
And when is he going to do that?
Over there, inshallah, and here.
And here, exactly,
Here
inshallah,
well, yeah.
Inshallah, we can enjoy his reply and his and his intercession here and in the hereafter, inshallah. So, one other thing, if I can mention, in respect of turning a bad deed around and making it good, or removing the bala, is astaghfar.
Yeah, it's a very important point.
It's the simplest, one of the simplest things, but it's like you've said, Sheikh, everything needs to be genuine. I can't sit there and do all the wrong things in the day and at the end of the night sit with a misbah and just go, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. Yeah, no problem, I'm done. There's 100, tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah.
It's got to be genuine.
That's the Jirabullah.
This
is the time. There's no time like the present.
Yeah.
There's a time where people have to consider honestly. You've been sitting in your homes. The devil's really been locked away this year. You know, the pubs, the clubs. Yeah, they've all been chained up.
Yeah.
Even the sacrifice that even the Islamic centers have been chained up.
Yeah.
But you've had programs. I've looked everywhere. There's always something happening somewhere, and there's been a lot of live lessons and programs.
Absolutely, all day, all night. You can,
You can find someone.
if it's Islamic content, you can find it online all day and all night
Okay.
without a word of a doubt.
That's right. So people had no excuse. The other thing is, you had your opportunity to spend your time with your kids. If someone hasn't educated their kids at all or spent time with their kids during this time, I don't know when they're going to do it. And,
Yeah.
and really to change your life, turn it around, look at what's important in your life. And because the hereafter is where it counts. And there's a hadith on, I think, Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam. He says, الناس في الدنيا بالأموال وفي الآخرة بالأعمال. Says in the dunya, the currency is for the people, or the way that people work, is through wealth, for money, but in the hereafter, it's through action. So this is your currency. You're basically saving up right now. You're working, and to make sure that you have a good nest egg when you're done. This is your superannuation,
Yeah.
your real one. This is
Very
where you're
nice.
going to retire.
Very
But the
nice.
difference with this superannuation, it's eternal, number one, and number two, you're going to be agile and fit enough to use it and enjoy it. You're not going to be like that old where pretty much it's setting you up for your
Well,
nursing
inshallah,
home.
we can all enter paradise at the heavenly age. That'd be ideal, wouldn't it, if we
Yeah.
can achieve that? Sheikh, a couple of a few more quick questions, and then we'll start to wrap up, inshallah. We get sidetracked a lot, and I think that's partly thanks to me as well. I have some other comments that I really want to share with you, but let's get through these questions first, if that's okay. Now, this could be a discussion in itself, I think. That, and this is really paraphrasing this person's question, is that why do bad things happen to good people? And why do good things happen to bad people? How is that reaping what you sow?
Hold on. When you say bad things, I think you've defined bad as wrong. Because in the Quran, it says clearly that perhaps عسى أن تكرهوا شيئا وهو خير لكم وعسى أن تحبوا شيئا وهو شر لكم. Sometimes you may dislike something, but it's good for you. For example, there's a lot of things in life that if I was to get my child, told him to study, they'll see it as a bad thing. They won't see it as a good thing. But you see it differently. If you tell, for example, someone to sleep early, they see it as a bad thing. I want to stay up. If you tell someone to go to work, they'd rather sit and lounge about. People would rather enjoy. People would rather have fun. You know what I mean? So your perception of what's bad and good is different. Like, for example, you know how they say the good die young, or one of these lines. Or if it's dictators, they just live forever. They never die. But the Quran says a lot of things where say the Zainab alayhi salam, for example, says to a dictator, to like Yazid, she says, وَلَا يَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَن نُمْلِي لَهُمْ خَيْرًا لِأَنفُسِهِمْ. That if Allah gives you long life, don't think, or gives you wealth, or gives you position, don't think this is good for you. But نُمْلِي لَهُمْ لِيَزْدَادُوا إِثْمًا. Allah has given you a long life so you can keep sinning. And so, وَلَهُمْ عَذَابًا مُهِينًا. On the Day of Judgment, they will have, muhin means humiliating chastisement. They will not only be chastised and punished, but they'll be humiliated. God knows what that means. Now, sometimes when we say bad things, what's bad things? You might think, hold on, someone dying in the family is a bad thing, or someone living in the family is a good thing, or these things. That's my understanding of what's good and bad. It is a bad thing if you're going to die in heaven, because that's a eternal abode. But in this world, that is only a test phase. That you're here just to. For one reason you're here.
I think that's a key point, and that's something that I myself keep forgetting, is that we're here to be tested physically, mentally, spiritually, in every way.
Hajj Ali, no one's happy. In the sense that no one's comfortable, I should say. No one's comfortable. No, how that young girl that got shot, how am I comfortable knowing someone's getting shot? And you're not comfortable in a world where people die. In a world where there's famine, why is it like that? It's meant to be like that. It's meant to make you want to get out. So I just do what I need to do here, enough to move on. make my provisions, and get out. I'm not meant to stay in the exam room all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not meant to be in the fields plowing all the time. Once I'm done, it's over. This harvest season comes, I get what I've done, and I move on.
Yeah.
So if you say bad things happen to good people, I don't believe that. I believe the things that happen to you are good for you, regardless. If you're a good person, what that happens, because in this world, on the other side, Allah Azza wa Jal giving justice to a bad. For example, if I told you killing, is that, if I said, oh, I killed someone, is that good or bad? People say bad. I say that's wrong. If I killed, for example, a good example is if you killed Timothy McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber, for example. A lot of people went against the execution. But this guy's a mass murderer. It was a good thing that they killed him. Someone might turn around and say, no, that was a bad thing, still killing. But that's wrong. These same people support abortion, which I think it's 125,000 babies are killed a day. Did you know that? Abortion.
Oh, I didn't know that.
1/8 of a million babies are killed a day in the world.
Yeah, worldwide?
Through abortion. Well, it's the biggest killer. There's no bigger killer than abortion. It's the biggest killer. And these people that are against you killing Timothy McVeigh are pro you killing babies. The logic. مَا لَكُمْ كَيْفَ تَحْكُمُونَ. So what's good and what's bad, you don't know. وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. That's the remainder of the verse. Allah knows, you don't know.
That's right. That's right. I just want to add something to that, if that's okay, Sheikh. And I don't remember the exact hadith or the riwayat, but if nothing bad has befallen you, I think, for 3 days, then go and repent. Because should your Lord not have forgotten you?
That's right. Remember once when I was a child that Sheikh Mustafa Jafar was here, and he mentioned the story of I never forgot this guy came over and an egg fell and it didn't break, and he said the Prophet stood up and said, I will not sit in a house where an egg doesn't break. You know, this egg just fell from God knows how high, and it just didn't break. Your God won't even try, the meaning of the story, God won't even try you with something so petty.
Yeah. And he's abandoned you.
Another example I want to mention to the dear brother or sister that sent this question. There's an example that the Persians use, and ulama use as well in it's generally when I say it's the Persian ulama, the Iranian ulama that uses, because it has to do with Majnun and Layla. When if anyone knows the story between Majnun and Layla, it's about a guy that became crazy over a girl, but it's a long discussion, and he was kicked out of the city because of his love for her. One day he found out she was making niyaz, food for the poor, to get closer to God or whatever. And he went and sent his plate. And he said to his friend, can you take it in the city and give me the soup of Layla, or the food she's giving out, the niyaz she's making? So his friend comes and gives the bowl to Layla. Layla recognizes that the bowl is who? It's Qais, it's Majnun's. So she drops it and it breaks. So the man comes back, his friend, and he gives the bowl to Majnun, and it's broken. So Mujah grabs the bowl and begins to kiss it, and he's so happy. And he said to him, what are you so happy about? You didn't get any food. He said, did you see any other bowl than mine that broke? She recognized me out of everyone. So in other words, they use an example. Something happens to you, Allah remembered you. If you are not being tried, imagine that. You're not being tried with anything.
Yep.
Behind the serenity lies a hidden rage.
Yeah.
Something's coming.
Yeah.
It's not now, but it's coming. So I'd rather, can I have all the little hits now? Because they're good for me. That's what makes me stronger, makes me enjoy life.
It's also for us to remind us to remember God.
Of course.
To say, to do that astaghfar, to do that, Ya Allah, if I've done something wrong, then forgive me. If I need some guidance, guide me. Don't forget me. And we continually pray, don't forget me. And then when he doesn't forget you, you complain, God, what is this wrong thing? Why is my car blown up? Why have I lost my job? And I don't mean to minimize any of those, but because I've been through all of those. But that's, somebody else once said that problems are a sign of life. If you have no problems, what life do you have? Everybody has problems. But inshallah, we improve the quality of our problems by getting closer to God, inshallah. Sheikh, one or two quick things, and then inshallah, we will wrap it up. More of a Quranic question. for you. In Surah Waqi'ah, verse number 10 onwards, it talks about the Sabiqun, the forerunners, a large company of the former people and a few of the latter people. What are these forerunners that it refers to?
Okay. السابقون السابقون أولئك المقربون. مقربون are the people that are near most to God. Yani, if you want to know the status of these people, they are higher than anyone, like the righteous. They're the elite of the righteous. The verse initially came down, as-sabiqun came down upon three. On Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, on Hamza and Ja'far al-Tayyar. That's who the verse came down upon. So you're looking at a next level of quality of humanity, you know. So أولئك المقربون, when Allah says they are the near ones, and then the verse that that he or she has mentioned, ثلة من الأولين وقليل من الآخرين. That of them, we're talking about a bigger number is of the foremost people, the ones that were before, and a little of the ones that will come later. Obviously, an obvious thing you got to remember, of the past, there was 124,000 prophets, and they're awsiya. Now there's no more prophets. After Rasulullah, there's like pretty much we got Imam al-Hujjah Ajallah Farjahu al-Sharif and his loyal subjects that will follow him. There's still a small number in comparison. So if you're looking at the elite, that's why it mentions the three groups in Surah Al-Waqi'ah. As-Sabiqun, As-Sabiqun, Ashabul Yamin. Inshallah, we're one of these two groups. Wal-Iyadu Billah, the third group, Ashabul Shimal. They're the ones that will receive their book in their left hand. These are the ones that are far, but the other two, remember, there's the good and the bad, but then there's the elite of the good. Because as I mentioned, I don't know if you notice, I always say the believer enters paradise. It's a fact. But it's how you get there and where you end up. Because you want to be at the top. I don't even know why people would want to aim for the bottom level. We asked to be with Rasulullah. So I need to aim for the highest I can get. So at least I want to get into paradise. So if I aim high, I might just get in. You know, if I aim low, I might not make it in. God forbid. So that's these people generally why the number's bigger. It's got to do with these elite, and there was more elite in the past than you're going to have in the future, because there was all the prophets and all the pure ones got thrown out.
Exactly, early. The proximity with the Holy Prophet as well, and the three personalities you mentioned too. I mean, we don't have that today, and that makes it very difficult as followers of the religion to not have that those kinds of examples. There are certainly some beautiful examples of ulama today. Definitely, there's no question about that. But to achieve that level, that status, is a whole different thing.
But Allah considers that in your judgment.
Of course, you
see, the thing is, some people don't realize where you are. Always believe you're in Rahmat Allah, and believe where you are and where were you born and situation is the best for you. And Allah means the best for you. He only means good for you. Whatever happens, it's a blessing. You don't know how it's a blessing. You don't understand how it's a blessing.
That's a whole other discussion.
But you will
right there,
see it in this world before the next. You will see things that happen in your life. I'm glad I dodged that bullet.
Yeah.
You know, how many times have you seen that? You go, if I went down that's where I would have ended up.
Sheikh, at 20, I wouldn't have believed you. Today, I'm 100% with you.
But there's a proverb that says, and you're still a shab, I don't mean in any disrespect whatsoever. It says that the young man thinks that the old man is a fool, but the old man knows that the young man's a fool.
Yeah.
It's a perfect proverb to explain this.
Yeah. Okay, one or two more things, Sheikh, and then we'll call it a night. I know we're taking a lot of your time, and thank you everybody for staying with us on this session
this
as
is
well.
another thing. You're not taking my time. I'm the one that gains here.
Sheikh, I'm happy to sit here.
You know, we just don't want the no. I'm happy.
We'll finish this and we'll sit here, continue talking. Where is it? There is a question here from someone, and this might be something that would require more of a one-on-one session, but I do want to mention this question. what if a parent puts their child in a difficult position in taking their side in a problem with others, even when the child knows their parent is at fault also in that problem? So I think there might be a bit more behind that.
Well, you've got to judge every story in its own merit.
course,
But any time that your parent's number one, as long as they are with God. The second your parent deviates from God, doesn't matter what they say. If it's against God, you don't align with them, but you have to be good to them. Like you say, look, I'm sorry, but we agree to disagree. I don't take your side.
Yeah.
Your parent will say, you were a child that I should have never had. They might say unpleasant things to you. You take them on the chin and you just move on.
Yeah.
But you don't stand with your parents on batil. But you don't tell them, you're in the wrong. It's your parent. You still got to talk with respect.
Yeah.
You say, look, honestly, I what's that word? Was it respectfully
disagree. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. But to the person who asked that question, if you'd like to have more of a discussion with Sheikh, you're welcome to contact the center, and inshallah we can organize a discussion with Sheikh for you if you'd like to pursue that. Now, last question for the night, Sheikh, and then we'll wrap it up. What are some ways we can be patient and strong during trials, even though we have knowledge that things could be better in the hereafter, or even in the future for that matter?
What I do generally, when I have something I can't handle, I'll listen to a majlis for Imam Hussein. Because when I see their problems, every problem becomes easy. That's one thing I think that works. Because when you tahun al-masa'ib, every problem becomes nothing. One thing, if you're a parent, a good majlis to listen, you got a problem, always listen to the majlis of Ali al-Akbar.
Oh.
And you listen to that as a parent, then every problem you have means nothing. You listen to the calamities of any of the Imams, but especially Karbala. Karbala has something about it that it rips your heart away, and it makes you forget everything. So generally, if I want to be patient, if I've got a problem, I like to listen to a majlis. Another thing is reading the Quran. The Quran honestly opens your heart because God's speaking to you. To supplicate, to do dhikr Allah, remember God. And ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innu al-qulub, that your heart becomes more content with the remembrance of God. Or as Dua Abi Hamza, once again we use the reference, he goes, bi dhikrika asha qalbi. With your remembrance, my heart lives. It lives. Ash it subsists. It's something so deep that when I remember God, and I remember what it's all about, the dunya, I don't care anymore. You know what I mean? I don't care. And it becomes, I start understanding what its value is. But I always tell you, the majlis of Imam Hussein, it's a gift from God. And that's why we do Ziyarat Ashura, the last part of it, what do? Sajda shukr. We do sujood to thank God for this, because if it wasn't for this, we could not understand what this world was. It wasn't for this ultimate sacrifice, in the grand scheme of things, for us to understand the value of this world. And if this, the most precious of God's creations, can be treated in this way, I've seen nothing.
Ahsan, Sheikh. Thank you very much. On just a couple of points on that, and we close up. One is that we have a fantastic short speech by Haj Muhammad Naki on our Facebook page, which he did just last weekend, I believe, on finding your inner strength. So it's very timely that this question's been asked. I would encourage you to have a look on our Facebook page for that video. I think it is pinned as a feature video, so you'll find it really easily. Also, with any of the du'as that were mentioned tonight by Sheikh, Dua Abu Hamza, and I would encourage you to also have a look at Munajat Imam Ali. Those two du'as, especially in this month, will take you to another level, absolutely another level. And you're speaking to God in a completely different way. And certainly, speaking for myself, it was an experience that I hadn't had until I had the opportunity to listen to these du'as, and I found them enlightening and really uplifting. And inshallah, it strengthens our closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and improves our opportunities for this world and the hereafter as well. So those are also on our Facebook page. You can find them there, and I think the du'as are also on our YouTube as part of the Amal of Laylatul Qadr for the last during the last week. Sheikh.
Just before you leave,
Yes,
I
Sheikh.
just want everyone to know, when you do an action, always have a positive opinion in God. Always don't be suspicious of your Creator. Always think the best. That what you're doing is for you, and whatever you do, even if it's a little, it's better than doing nothing at all. Like one hadith I wanted to mention, I wasn't able to, that the Imam says, I think it's Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, says to do any action that's continuous is better than doing a big action. So in other words, what you people need to do, especially when we're out of isolation, is to start attending regular majlis, once a week, once a fortnight. I'm going to come to a majlis once a fortnight. Don't do that one dump in Muharram, or that one where you come in one hit and just sit for a whole 10 nights, and that's it for the year. You need to do this regular, even if it's small. Even if you say, all right, I'm going to make an oath with myself that I'm going to do Tasbih al-Zahra after my prayers. Every time. It's better to do this than to pray Salatul Layl once a week. You know,
Absolutely.
or once
Yeah,
a month.
completely agree.
Something that's continuous.
Completely agree.
And have a good opinion in God. Something small with purity is worth more than doing something big just so that people can see what
It's the
you're
same as going to the gym, Sheikh. There's no point going once a week and
Yeah.
expecting to get fit or expecting
doing.
to get
Even
strong.
if someone uses steroids, they still got to go
Yeah,
regularly.
you still have to go
There's no
regularly,
way
that's
they cheat. Yeah.
Absolutely. Sheikh, thank you very much. We've another fantastic session. Really enjoyed it, and I hope it's been of benefit to everybody who's viewing as well. Thank you again for joining us this evening. Please stay tuned on our Facebook, website, and email and WhatsApp for announcements regarding Eid and our upcoming programs. Our next program is this Friday night with Sheikh Mohammed Mahdi for Yawm al-Quds. Please join in then. Inshallah, we'll be on Facebook and YouTube on Friday night from 8:15. And if there's anything that you require between at any point, please feel free to reach out to the center. We'll do our best to assist you. And just a reminder that we are closed to public gatherings. Anything you need, we will do our best to assist. And there are several ways and means that you can communicate with us and get in contact with us. Inshallah, we can be of assistance to you. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.